To Sir with Love, Part 2. Eustace Edward Ricardo Braithwaite. Presentation prepared by Mrs. Sujata Ali. Synopsis of the extract. The novel To Sir with Love is written by E.R. Braithwaite. The entire novel consists of 200 pages in paperback edition. The total number of chapters in the novel is 22. In this particular lesson, which is prescribed for Standard 12th Maharashtra State Board of Secondary Education, we are going to deal exclusively with chapter number 17. In this extract, Braithwaite gives an account of a particular event that used to take place in the Greenslade School where he was a teacher. The half-yearly report of the Students' Council, in which the students used to read the school report to the faculty and other students regarding what they had studied so far, was going to be read. Braithwaite's class representative speak knowledgeably about their coursework and place a great deal of emphasis on how much they have learnt about different people, cultures, customs, and the importance of international and interracial cooperation. Characters appearing in chapter 17. The narrator, E.R. Braithwaite. Headmaster, Mr. Florian. Teachers, Mr. Weston, Mrs. Dale Evans, Miss Phillips. Students, Miss Joseph, Denham, Potter, Miss Pegg and Jackson, Miss Dare and Fernham, Miss Dodd and Sapiano. Miss Joseph and Denham preside over the meeting. Mr. Florian, the headmaster, addresses the meeting. Each class gives a brief report of their progress through their chosen representative on what they have been studying in each subject so far. The lowest class begins first, and it's obvious that as the rank of classes move up, the ability to express themselves also gets better and refined. Mr. Braithwaite's class, being the oldest, is the last to present their report. Name of the student and subjects on which they had to report. Miss Joseph reports on domestic science. Common theme underlying all their studies this term is the interdependency of mankind. Potter speaks in the field of maths. Focus on greater understanding in the world is fostered by use of weights and measures. Miss Pegg and Jackson speak on geography. Miss Dare and Fernman, subject of physiology. Fernman exhibits a model of human skeleton, drawing conclusion that basically all people were the same. Miss Dodd reports on history. Denham creates a stir, speaking on PT and games, complaining the class was ill-conceived and pointless. Mr. Weston, Mrs. Dale Evans and Miss Phillips are chosen to answer students' question. student's question, Denham insists on his inquiry on the necessity of requiring all students to take PT. Teacher's replies, Mr. Weston is unable to give a convincing reply and simply talks in a loud, aggressive way to end the discussion on the subject. Denham is still not convinced with his reply and keeps pursuing with the same question. Miss Phillips then comes forward and gives a strong defense in favor of continuing with the practice of PT for all students. Denham realizes he has been outwitted and respectfully stops his heated protest. Braithwaite is extremely satisfied with the progress of the students of his class. To Sir with Love. Chapter 17. Detailed Explanation. The half-yearly report of the Students' Council was on November 15th. It was one of the most important days in the calendar of Greenslade School. The narrator was as excited as the students. The students arranged, presented, and controlled all activities of that day. The narrator observed the activities of his class students and felt a sense of deep pride. On that day, there was no assembly. The students arrived smartly dressed and polished. Miss Joseph and Denham moved about among their colleagues to ensure that each one was ready to play his or her part. The bell rung at 10 a.m. and everyone entered the auditorium and took their seats. Miss Joseph and Denham, senior-most students, sat on the stage. Mr. Florian, the headmaster, spoke in detail regarding the aims and policies of the school and the significant contribution each child could make to further those aims. He praised the students for the good work done and also emphasized on the more that could be done, highlighting their improvement in conduct, cleanliness, and pursuit of knowledge. The narrator became aware of the fact that the headmaster was very much attached with every activity of the school and regarded himself one with it. Miss Joseph gave a short explanation of the council's purpose and its activities. Each class had to report through its representatives on the studies pursued during the half year after Easter, one representative having been chosen for one subject. All classes would be given the chance to complete their reports. A panel of teachers would be invited to come on stage and answer questions on matters arising out of the various reports. The selection of the panel was entirely at the discretion of the children, and no members of the staff knew which teachers would be invited to sit. The reports began with the lowest class first. These were the 12-year-olds and were shy and frightened to stand up before the entire school, but still they somehow managed to do so. Their report was rather short and got over quickly. Every class got a chance to read their report. There was a marked development in their ability to express themselves. Much of their work was rather basic, but to them it was something very important. The emphasis of each report was on what they understood rather than on what they were expected to learn. Next came the turn of Braithwaite's class to read the report. The narrator became quite tense and sat up anxiously. Potter read the report on arithmetic, Sapiano on nature study, Miss Pegg and Jackson on geography, Miss Dare and Fernman on physiology, Miss Dodd on history, Denham, PT and games, and Miss Joseph on domestic science. Denham used the term Miss to address each of the senior girls, which made the narrator feel extremely pleased. As their names were called, they walked up to the stage and took their seats with commendable, meaning praiseworthy, gravity, meaning seriousness, importance. Miss Joseph. Points covered in her report. Her report covered the subject of domestic science. She emphasized that their lessons had a particular inclination towards brotherhood of mankind. They had been learning through each subject how all mankind was interdependent in spite of geographical location and differences in color, races and creeds, meaning beliefs. The second student to read his report was Potter. His subject was mathematics. He spoke of the work they had done on weights and measures. He also emphasized on the relationship between kilogram and pound, the meter and the foot. He added, saying that throughout the world, one or the other of those two methods was either in use or understood. It was a symbol of a greater understanding which was being accomplished by the peoples. Sapiano spoke on nature study. He spoke on the study the class had made of pests, especially black spot on wheat, boll weevil on cotton, and the Colorado beetle on potatoes. He showed how many countries had pooled their knowledge and results of research on the behavior, breeding habits, and migration of these pests, and were gradually reducing the threat they represented to these important products. Miss Pegg and Jackson divided the report of geography between them. Jackson spoke on distribution of mineral deposits and vegetable produce over the Earth's surface. A country rich in one was often deficient in the other. Interchange and interdependence inevitably followed. Miss Pegg dealt with human relationships. She stressed on the problems facing post-war world for feeding, clothing, and housing its populations. She made a reference to the thousands of refugees, stateless and unwanted. Efforts and programs of UNICEF for them. Fernman, as usual, had a trick up his sleeve. When called, he made a signal to someone off stage, and Welsh and Allison appeared bearing a skeleton between them together with a sort of gallows. When this arrangement had been set up, there was the skeleton hanging from a hook, screwed into the top of its skull, gently revolving at the end of a cord. This was somewhat in the nature of comic relief, and the school showed its approval by laughing uproariously. He spoke clearly and precisely, and had a strong sense of the dramatic. He calmly explained that it was a female skeleton. But he could not say with any assurance whether she had been Chinese or French or German or Greek. Nor could he say if she was brown or white or a mixture of both. He thus concluded that basically all people were the same. The trimmings might be different, but the foundation were all laid out according to the same blueprint. Miss Dare. She spoke on problems which all humanity has to face in terms of sickness and disease, and of the advantages gained due to the interchange of knowledge, advice, and assistance. Miss Dodd reported on the period of history. She emphasized on the Reformation in England. She spoke on the struggles of men of independent spirit against clerical, meaning clergy domination. Their efforts to break from established religious traditions. That is how the idea of tolerance for the beliefs and cultures of others gradually grew, and the common interest to study and understand those cultures began. Denham's report was a bit of a shock. He severely criticized the general pattern of PT and games. He emphasized the serious limitations of space obtaining and the effect of that limitation on their game activities. He complained that the PT was ill-conceived and pointless, and the routine monotonous. A jolly good game was far better. Apparently, he was voicing the opinion of all the boys. Denham called two children from the audience and asked them to write the names of each teacher, including the headmaster, on a slip of paper. 3 slips were withdrawn one by one. The 3 names that came out were Mr. Weston, Mrs. Dale Evans, and Miss Phillips. The 2 top-class students asked most of the questions to the teacher representatives. The teachers were often caught out stammering for the correct replies, as they had not got any briefing regarding the questions going to be put forward to them. Miss Phillips proved to be the coolest and best informed of the 3. She dealt with questions put to her with candor, meaning openness and authority. She intervened skillfully to assist one of the other teachers without causing embarrassment. Denham's defense against PT versus Miss Phillips' argument in its favor. Denham, he was a trained boxer and insisted that such exercises were only advantageous if practiced daily and for sustained periods. Miss Phillips said that every subject, including PT and games, had been carefully fitted into the teaching timetable so that each student received maximum benefit from it. Denham said PT twice weekly for 20 minutes was a waste of time. Miss Phillips said the school, with its limited facilities, must be considered in terms of the greatest good for the greatest number, and no school had the power to please everybody. Denham insisted that only those who required PT should be taken to do it, whereas other students like him could have a game of football or something more worthwhile. Miss Phillips added that some students were physically better developed than the others and may not need the help of PT for further growth, but there were less developed students for whom this program was better fitted. She reiterated by adding that PT was more an exercise of the mind than that of the body. The whole timetable in that school was to help him, meaning Denham, in the world after he left school and learning to do what he was told in spite of not liking it. That was also a part of training. Poor Denham knew that he'd been outwitted. Miss Phillips knew that she had won the argument. Her smile broadened. The innocent-looking puss had gobbled her canary without leaving the tiniest feather. The headmaster went on the stage and closed the proceedings, expressing his pride in all the children and deep appreciation of their efforts. The end. Presentation prepared by Mrs. Sujata Ali. Thank you for watching.